What we have here is an 11-day moon. Yep, 3 more till the full. And we have a Jupiter up maybe 20 degrees further away from the moon. It should both fit on the screen, but we're not seeing Jupiter because I have the camera set on low light sensitivity because I'm going to do an experiment this very evening. Saturday the 23rd, I've got the scope set up. It's kind of pointing towards NGC350 series part of the sky, and I'm going to launch into it and then go eat dinner and come back out, and hopefully we'll get some decent imagery. If we do, I'm going to stick with the NGC series a little bit despite the moon. If not, then it'll have been an excellent experiment. Okay, the time now is 5:26. We are looking at a spectacular galaxy in scope there, NGC253. I'll let that image see if it can form any more on the screen. All I'm seeing is the core with some vague extensions as our first test of the seeing conditions despite the 11-day moon. I've had a really good view of this several times before, and it's captured in the NGC350-399 series. I'll give you the data here in a second. I do believe some extension is visible on the galaxy. It's now right about 5:30. We are a couple of days after the winter solstice. NGC253 is a galaxy in scope. They're magnitude 7.2, very large, almost as large as the moon is in width. 26.4 arc minutes by 6. So not quite edge-on, but supra-edge-on galaxy. Spiral with a capital B, would be a bar, and a lowercase c. It's 12.2 million light years distant, and it's between our own local group of galaxies and the Sculptor group. So knows where it'll eventually end up. But there is our view. I'll also see if we can get the scope to line up on 891 as another test for further up in the sky. Keep in mind we're at minus 25 degrees in terms of declination. While NGC253 was probably some 45 degrees from the 11-day moon, we are now looking probably at about 20 degrees from that same moon. I'm seeing the galaxy. It's giving its edge-on presentation. Once again, the background sky is washed out. We'll give the CCD imager, the Rev2 real-time imager, an opportunity to capture as much light and make whatever compensations it can for the fact that the moon is in the sky, although it's a fairly clear sky in and of itself. NGC891 is a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 9.9, half the size of 253, 13.1 by 2.8 arc minutes. However, it presents virtually edge-on. Spiral with a lowercase b, 29 million light years distant, not aware that it's a member of any particular group of galaxies. I rather doubt that it is. We are at 42 and almost a half degrees in declination, and that view ain't bad except for the washed out screen. So it does, very marginal, but we are going to go ahead and take a look at the other NGC 350 to 399 series this evening, just to get a sense of what moonwash does do to deep sky studies during real-time imaging. Various studies in the NGC 350 to 399 series are probably at this hour, 5:30 plus, within 10 degrees of culminating, which means I probably have another 45 minutes before, or maybe an hour before the scope would decide to do an equatorial flip to the west, which may be the bulk of the studies later on this evening. Virtually all the studies are probably about 40 degrees plus from the moon. The screen does look particularly blue. Now here's the key. NGC350 Galaxy in Cetus is at minus almost 7 degrees, but it's magnitude 15 and smallish, 0.7 by 0.5 arc minutes. A lenticular spiral, 268 million light years distant, puts it at about 50,000 light years in diameter, and I can see that one, possibly two galaxies on the screen. Can't be sure which one it is, but at magnitude 15 under this moon, I would expect it to be that particular galaxy there and not its brighter mate. Even so, the 15th magnitude galaxy on an 11-day moon night near culmination would be actually fairly impressive. NGC351 is another galaxy in Cetus the Whale. Brighter though, magnitude 13.2, but spreads its light out a bit more, maybe twice as much. So we're pretty close to the same average surface brightness. This is 1.5 by 0.8 arc minute, oblately presented spiral with a bar. It is lenticular class A, so if it has a bar and it's lenticular, it's a crossing over in terms of its maturation. 188 million light years distant, and we're at minus 2 degrees, and I do believe I see the galaxy there, which kind of corresponds to where I suspected the 15th magnitude NGC350 was located on the screen. NGC352 is another galaxy in Cetus. We're at about minus 4 and change declination. This one's brighter, magnitude 12.6, but also larger, but better presented at 2.4 by 0.8 arc minutes. Spiral with a bar, lowercase bc designations, 235 million light years distant. We are at right ascension 1 hour and 2 minutes and 9 seconds. I am seeing a galaxy on the screen, and I'm seeing some funny fuzziness going off laterally, so not a bad view, but not particularly spectacular for almost a sub-13th magnitude galaxy. Not seeing this one on the screen. Maybe the core right there. A little further up than I would have expected, although I'm seeing a fainter, broader galaxy there and possibly another one at that location. So we'll assume the one that's further down, that's more diffuse, is NGC353. Galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.6, 1.3 by 0.4 arc minutes, suboblately presented galaxy. Spiral with a bar, lowercase ab, 185 million light years distant. We're at minus 2 degrees in declination. That's our view for this 11-day moon evening. Okay, let's see what things look like further north in Pisces. We're at plus 22 and almost a half degrees in declination. NGC354 is a magnitude 13.4, pure oblate, 0.8 smallish by 0.4 arc minute galaxy. So pretty intense given its size at magnitude 13.4. Spiral with a bar with some peculiarities, 211 million light years distant. This galaxy probably swallowed a smaller neighbor in the last couple billion years. We're at 22 degrees, and this is how the screen looks. The galaxy is quite present there. It does look like there's two galaxies very close to one another. That's our look, NGC354. Here we should have NGC355, another galaxy in Cetus at minus 6 and change degrees in declination. Galaxy's magnitude 15, but its presentation is 1 by 0.4 arc minutes suboblate. It is a lenticular spiral class O, 322 million light years distant. Puts it pretty much right there at the size of our own Milky Way. However, the only galaxy I think I'm seeing is here, and we would expect to see it in this region here. So I am a little, well, there is a fainty right about there. I'm a little suspect of whether we're catching this one or not, and I cannot ascribe it to any high thin clouds that I am aware of. So NGC 355. Before I talk much about NGC 356, a galaxy in Cetus, I want to already notice that I'm down 1 bar on the camera battery, and I fully charged it before I came out and mounted it. NGC356, Galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.5, oblate, 1.5 by 0.8 arc minutes, presentation, spiral with a lowercase bc, 261 million light years distant, puts it at about 120,000 light years in diameter. The galaxy is quite present there. To the eye, we are at -7 degrees in terms of declination. Not too far, but off the screen from NGC356 is NGC357, another galaxy in Cetus. We're at -6 at almost a half degrees in declination. Brightest galaxies so far, other than our test galaxies, which were 253 and 891. This is a magnitude 12 galaxy, 2.5 by 1.7 arc minutes. So it's got about an average surface brightness around 13.5 to 14, spiral with a bar, lenticular, lowercase a, 106 million light years distant, so it's probably about 85,000 light years in diameter. We're at -6 and change in terms of declination. The core of the galaxy is quite visible on the screen, and it may have neighbors. NGC359 is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.3, 1.5 by 1.1 arc minutes, lenticular spiral class O. 241 million light years means it's larger than our Milky Way, probably about 115 to 20,000 light years in diameter. We are just almost 1 degree south of the celestial equator. I plan on doing this early evening capture until about NGC 374. At which time I'm going to go in and have din-din, or dinner for some, and then maybe get back out after the scope is flipped for the western part of the sky to capture the rest of them. However, the moon will continue its ascent and will pretty much be about the same distance, which is 40 degrees from these studies. And we just had what looks like a meteor passage. Well, apparently 3 or 4 NGCs in the series were down below the horizon. It didn't even show up on my screen. We skipped to NGC 363, and given the fact it's about 25 degrees out, I am not discouraged with that. 363 is a galaxy magnitude 15, almost football shape, 0.6 by 0.5 arc minute spiral, so very small and 500 million light years distant. It's at -16.5 degrees. This one is probably some 75 to 80,000 light years in diameter, and the fact that it's so far away and reasonably bright means it's a fairly mature galaxy, as would be expected with a spiral of the lenticular class. -16.5 degrees declination. Well, we're in Cetus again, and we're almost at the equator, -1 degrees. NGC364 galaxy, magnitude 13.1. Football shape, 1.4 by 1.2, lenticular spiral, 233 million light years distant. And if we're seeing anything, all we're seeing is the core right about there with some faint nebulosity in association with it. Deep south on this one, we're at -35 degrees. It's a little outside my normal envelope for NGC365, the number of days in a Terran year. Galaxy in Sculptor, magnitude 13.5, 1 by 0.6 arc minutes. Don't expect to see anything of this. Spiral with a bar, lowercase bc, 445 million light years distant, puts it about the size of Messier 31, our standard candle for evaluating galaxy sizes and intrinsic luminosity. Skipping an open cluster in Cassiopeia, NGC367 is a galaxy in Cetus, faintest one yet, magnitude 15.5, 0.9 by 0.5 arc minutes, lenticular spiral, some 342 million light years distant, about the size of our own Milky Way. I can make no claims as to whether I see it on the screen. I'll give it a few more seconds. This galaxy is at -12 degrees, so that would be tough. We probably should be able to see it on a moonless night. We're at right ascension 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 48 seconds. There may be hints of it on the screen, but I'm making no claims about NGC367 on the 11-day moon. Skipping over a far south galaxy in Phoenix, we're now arrived at NGC369, galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.8, Football shape 1 by 0.8 arc minutes. Spiral with a bar, lowercase b. 276 million light years distant means it's about the size of our own Milky Way. We're at minus 17, almost 18 degrees in declination. I am seeing a bit of a presence there on the screen. Over a few anomalous stars in the catalog. We're now at NGC373, which means after the next one I should be able to take a break from the cold, recharge the battery on the camera, and then come back out as the moon continues its ascent, but maybe, just maybe, we'll find this series acceptable. This is NGC373, Galaxy in Pisces, plus 32 and change. So we're pretty high up, but keep in mind, this is a 16.6 magnitude, 0.3 by 0.3 arc minute size elliptical galaxy, 249 million light years distant. This galaxy is probably not much more than 30 to 35,000 light years in diameter. We're looking at the screen. I can't claim any galaxy here. We are further north. There are other faint fuzzies on the screen. I do not, based on experience, as we go further north, galaxies tend to drop down to the bottom of the screen. They'll go to the top when we do an equatorial flip. There is something faint there. I would not claim to be able to see a magnitude 16.6 galaxy unless it was a clear dark night with no skies, clouds in the middle of the field of view, and then we would just barely make out the core with hints of fuzziness, a fuzzy aura around its extremities. But there's our view. Looks like some other intriguing studies there that maybe we'll catch later this evening. Remaining in Pisces for NGC374, Galaxy magnitude 13.4, 1.1 by 0.5 arc minutes, obliquely presented spiral with a lowercase a, 229 million light years distance, probably about 90,000, 80,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 32, almost 33 degrees in declination. I am going to continue to 375 because I want to use it as a baseline check as we observe later in the evening. NGC 375 is another galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 16, however, 0.9 by 0.7 arc minutes, considered an elliptical class 2, 271 million light years distant. We are at plus 32 degrees in 20 minutes. Let's have a look at 891 before I knock off for dinner, and then hopefully resume from 375 onward, which we just imaged later on in the evening. Okay, I'm going to let NGC 891, that beautiful galaxy in Andromeda on the border of Perseus, formulate on the screen. I am seeing it. It is present, quite present. I'll give you the data once again, just for the heck of it. NGC 891 is a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 9.9, half the size, as I mentioned before, of 253, and Sculptor, 13.1 by 2.8 arc minutes. You can see the dark bar. Hopefully we'll see the dark bar bisecting the center of the galaxy, as it is almost a pure edge on. It's at 42 degrees, 20 minutes, 53 seconds in declination, 2 hour, 22 and 33 in terms of right ascension. I will give it a few more seconds to see if it continues to develop. Then I'm going to park the scope with a counterweight down, and then we're going to have to retack to the sky as the rest of the NGC 350-399 series, beginning with 375, is captured either as the final viewing or just as a comparo with the future views of this region of the sky once the moon exits stage east. Okay, we're back to NGC 375 with the scope now equatorially flipped. 375 is a really good part of the sky. Be nice to see something of it. The moon is, as I probably about 35 degrees, 30 to 35 degrees east of our current pointing location, and there is some luminosity to the screen. NGC375 is a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 16. I'm getting a sense of it there. 0.9 by 0.7 arc minutes. It's that elliptical 2 class galaxy, 271 million light years distant, which is about 75 to 80,000 light years in diameter. It's at plus 32 and 20 minutes and 52 seconds with a right ascension of 1 hour, 7 minutes and 6 seconds. So this may work out after all, especially given the fact that the sidereal clock is going to be moving swiftly towards the west because the sun is going to be setting later and later each and every evening. Just for the record, I just reduced the brightness of the display screen from about 28 to 22. I'm hoping it won't affect the contrast that much. I'm not really seeing that much in pixelation on the screen. I may play with that boosted a little bit later on. This is NGC377, a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 15.7, supra edge-on 0.8 by 0.2 arc minutes. Oh my God, wait a second, this can't be correct. 3,390,000,000 light years distant. I'm going to have to check that out because there isn't going to be anything that's far away that's magnitude 15.7. Huh. Anyway, that data will have to be confirmed. It's at minus 20 degrees and change. And I will definitely want to come back and revisit this one at some point in the future. This is a spiral with a lowercase b. And that doesn't make sense either because there must be a transcription error here because you would expect to either see an elliptical or an oblate galaxy that would be luminous enough to be magnitude 15.7 at 3,390,000,000 light years in distance. Anyway, I'm incredulous. NGC378, a deep south galaxy in Sculptor, minus 30 degrees and change. This is magnitude 13.1, 1.5 by 1.1 arc minute spiral with a bar and a ring. And were it placed overhead on a nice dark clear night, we just might make out a little bit of that annulus. The galaxy is a credible 430 million light years distant, and I just shifted on, but I am seeing a faint fuzzy right about there on the screen. I did shift on the floor. So NGC 378 minus 30 degrees, galaxy in Sculptor. Well, surprisingly enough, we're almost pointed at the zenith here with galaxy in Pisces, NGC 379. Brightest magnitude 12.9, 1.4 by 0.7 arc minutes, perfect oblate, lenticular spiral class O, 253 million light years distant, and it's at plus 32.5 degrees. This galaxy is probably about the size of our own Milky Way. And I believe that's the galaxy there. Remember when we flipped the scope over, the positions may be off, or possibly that one there. I would think they would be heading this way with the scope flipped. So there's another galaxy here, but this is likely to be our NGC 379. Nary a click on the drive. We're at NGC 380, a galaxy in Pisces, slightly brighter, 12.5 magnitude, 1.3 by 1.1 arc minute, elliptical class 2, 202 million light years distant, puts it at about 80,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 32 and almost a half degrees in declination. So once more, pointed up towards the zenith, and it's going to either be that galaxy or that one. We'll have to spot them later on as we continue to get accustomed to the equatorially flipped view to the west. Here we have NGC 382, a galaxy in Pisces, after we skip over an open cluster too far north in Cassiopeia. This galaxy is magnitude 13.2, 0.9 by 0.9 arc minute elliptical, and as you might expect, class O. It's 238 million light years distant, probably 75,000 light years in diameter plus. We're at plus 32.5 degrees, and it's in the same field as the previous, which was, I believe, 380 and 379. I suspect this is our galaxy right here. I'll have to map them out later. It'll make it quite easy now that we've had 3 in a row, pretty much on the same screen. Again, nary a click, NGC383, Galaxy in Pisces. This is brightish, magnitude 12.4 but larger, 2 by 1.7, arc-minute size, lenticular spiral. 231 million light years distant, put this about the size of the Andromeda Galaxy at about 152,000 light years. We're at plus 32 and almost a half degrees in declination. We have definitely encountered some kind of galaxy grouping here, whether line of sight or communal like our own Milky Way in the local group. Another group galaxy in Pisces, NGC384, magnitude 13.1, 1.1 by 0.8 arc minutes, an elliptical class 3, 195 million light years distant, plus 32 and 17 minutes in northern declination. I suspect it'll be this one right here, which means we should be able to map out pretty well, since these last 4 or 5 galaxies have all been in the same region of the sky, and several of them on the same screen. Watch this one develop. NGC385 is another one of those galaxies in this Piscean group. Magnitude 13, 1.1 by 1 spiral of the lenticular class, 229 million light years distant, probably 75,000 light years in diameter, and about the same declination. We're at now hour 1:07:27, and I am seeing a galaxy right there on the screen. Also in Pisces, but further to the north at 32 and 21 minutes, is NGC386, a galaxy. Magnitude 14.3, small, elliptical, 0.4 by 0.3 arc minutes, 251 million light years distant. This one's probably not much bigger than maybe 30,000 light years, 20 to 30,000 light years in distance, in size along its major axis. I'm seeing a galaxy here, however, but there's also a fainter one there. That makes sense because it's magnitude 14.3 in brightness. Our faintest galaxy in this Pisces group is NGC387, magnitude 16, small, 0.3 by 0.3 arc minute elliptical at 224 million light years distant. We're at plus 32, 23, 27, right ascension 10733. There's a brightish galaxy right here and a fainter one neighboring it. I'm going to have to basically, once again, chart this one out a little bit based on all these other galaxies we've been encountering farther in far north Pisces. Again in Pisces, nary a click, NGC388, galaxy, magnitude 14.3, small, 0.3 by 0.3 arc minute sized elliptical, 249 million light years distant, so we're probably somewhere around 25,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 32 and 18, and I do believe there's something faintish there, but this is supposed to be magnitude 14.3. That looks a bit fainter than expected, but it could very well be it. But its apparent size is so small, it should be more intense in terms of its brightness. We shall see on the morrow. Even further north in Andromeda is NGC389 galaxy, magnitude 13.8. Should have a decent aspect ratio, 1.3 to 0.4, spiral with a lowercase a, 243 million light years distant, probably just a wee bit larger than our own Milky Way, at probably maybe 105, 110,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 39 at 41 minutes. Galaxy should be relatively obvious. The scope is just about to approach absolute zenith straight overhead. Back a little further south now to NGC390, a galaxy in Pisces. It's 0.5 by 0.4 arc minutes. No indication as to brightness. I'll have to look this one up if it's available. 215 million light years distant. No class information. It's at 322713. And I can't make any claims. Maybe here on the screen. If so, it would probably be somewhere around magnitude 15. NGC391 is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.4, 0.9 by 0.7 arc minute size, apparent size, elliptical, 240 million light years distant. We're at just about 1 degree above the celestial equator. I think the galaxy is pretty obvious right there at the tip of my finger. They start to drift further to this part of the screen. As we head south, there's our look. Back up north into Pisces for a brightish galaxy, NGC392, magnitude 12.7, 1.2 by 0.9 arc minutes, lenticular spiral class O, 213 million light years distant, plus 33 and change in declination. It's probably that one right there. NGC393 is probably the most northernmost galaxy, and we're not getting any blockage. We're at plus 39, 38, 37. Whoa, I like that series of numbers. Right ascension hour 10837. NGC393 is a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 12.5, 1.7 by 1.4 arc minute, lenticular spiral, 277 million light years distant. Probably puts it at about 125,000 light years in diameter, and I believe that's the galaxy right there. We may be needing a little time for NGC394, a galaxy in Pisces, to accumulate some of it, stream some of its light into the real-time imager. Its magnitude 15.6 by 0.3, obliquely presented spiral of the lenticular class O, 214 million light years distant, plus 33 and change degrees northern declination. This galaxy is probably somewhere around maybe 40,000 light years in diameter and is quite apparent. At least there is a galaxy located right there on the screen. There's maybe something fainter there. This one looks a little bright to me, so that's probably at magnitude 15. NGC396 is a galaxy but in far south Pisces, plus 4.5 degrees in declination. Faint, magnitude 16, 0.4 by 0.3 arc minute, just classed as a spiral. 566 million light years distant, so its redshift is somewhere around 0.04. We are at plus 4.5 degrees in declination. Can't make any claims about the galaxy being visible on the screen, especially under the influence of the lunacy, but there is something that would look like a galaxy, although it looks a little bit too bright, and a fainter echo of it right about there, which much more conceivably could be a galaxy, but no guarantees on that one, given the lunacy and a magnitude 16 galaxy. NGC397 is further north, a galaxy in Pisces. Should be able to make this one out, although it's very small. Magnitude 15.5, 0.3 by 0.3 arc minute. Apparent size elliptical, 226 million light years distant. It's probably about 20,000 light years across. It's at plus 3306 in terms of northern declination. And you can see some galaxies present right there on the screen. And at magnitude 15.5, I couldn't make any claims, but there's something fainter right about there. And we are further north, so towards the bottom of the screen. NGC398 is another galaxy in northern Pisces at plus 32.5 degrees. However, its magnitude 15.5 and quite small, 0.3 by 0.2 arc minutes. Spiral of the lenticular class, 231 million light years distant. once again, very small, maybe 20,000 light years in diameter. We are at 32.5 degrees in declination. I can make no claims. 15.5 should be feasible, I'd like to believe, on an 11-day moon evening. Okay, last of the NGC 350-399 studies of the evening, and of course that would make this NGC 399, Galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 13.6, 0.9 by 0.7 arc minute, spiral with a bar in lowercase a, 237 million light years distance, so it's probably about 75 to 80,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 32, 38, and the galaxy, I believe, is right about there. And before we carpe knocked him out, let's go have one more look at NGC, rhymes, not 891, 253. Here we have NGC 253, that spectacular, almost moon-sized, apparent-sized galaxy in Sculptor. Magnitude 7.2, 26.4 by 6 arc minutes in size, spiral with a bar, lowercase c, a mere 12.2 million light years distant, which would mean it's roughly about the size of our own Milky Way. Just as an estimate, we're at minus 25 degrees and change, and we are getting a pretty resplendent look across the screen. This makes for the kind of view that astronomers, amateur astronomers through an eyepiece would always be very pleased to get. Sorry about the greenishness on the screen. I might want to play with the hue settings later on the display. But the galaxy itself is showing the core. It is showing brightening regions of star formation, darker regions of cold dark matter that are not part of the star formation regions. And it's well positioned on the screen to give a nice resplendent view despite the presence of that full 11-day moon. Carpe Noctem.